Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm good, Nir. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm very happy that you are joining our FinTech Week. It's very, very much focused on Israel this year. And I know that you have a vast experience in the Israeli ecosystem. I'm going to ask you, of course, about Aleph, about great companies. But even before that, I want the people to understand a little bit about a background about you before we dive into Aleph and everything that you're doing these days.
Sure. Vast experience is a good code word for saying you're old. Thanks. I appreciate it. In fact, when we started Aleph, Eden Shochat and I, one of the articles in one of the local financial dailies, Globe, said that I was an old fox. I'm not sure that's a compliment. Um, and so my background, as you hear from my accent, I wasn't born in Israel, but I moved to Israel in 1993, 27 years ago. And I like to say it was the second best decision I made in my life. The first, obviously, was marrying my wife. And we moved here. I started for about a year and a half in political consulting. I then repented to get to do something a little more productive. And that turned out to be the nascent area of venture capital. And was really fortunate enough to start my career when the internet got started in 1995. And was really fortunate enough to be alongside some of Israel's early internet entrepreneurs in the mid 90s, before most people here knew what a browser was. And I was super fortunate, really blessed in that way. And then I started a firm with Jerusalem, called Jerusalem Global, with Dr. Shlomo Kalish, a great man and mentor, and then joined John Medved, now of our crowd, and Neil Cohen at Israel Seed. Two great people to work with. Then I joined Benchmark Capital, the best in the business, basically, where I was unbelievably blessed to have people around mentoring me like Bruce Dunleavy, Bill Gurley, Peter Fenton, Bob Cagle, and others. And then in 2012, Benchmark was no longer going to be international. That was already since 2009. And joined forces with Eden Shochat to start Aleph. We've since been joined by Aaron Rosenson as our third equal partner. We're an equal partnership, just like Benchmark. And what we saw at the time was, much like Benchmark got started in the mid 90s when the internet became a thing, my career got started as well. In 2012, 13, there was another technology shift happening, which was machine learning, machine vision, AI. This was before it became a buzzword. We actually had to explain it to a lot of people when we were on the road. And we wanted to kind of be a bystander to the great entrepreneurs of Israel as they started to disrupt every industry in the world using those technologies. And that's a great segue to what we're talking about today, which is what's called fintech. I think it's a bad name for what it's worth, but this world of technology and technology companies is biting more parts of the economy, and one of those is obviously financial services.
Amazing. And I understand that now Aleph has great fintech companies. You can mention some of them because we have them on the summit. I hope we're going to have more, actually, because people like Matan, right?
Yeah, Matan Amelia. So, look, there's like fintech sector funds that have kind of gotten started, and everyone talks about fintech. To be perfectly honest, we don't have a fintech thesis. We don't invest in fintech. We just look for great entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things with these technologies. And I actually think fintech is a misnomer, for what it's worth. And really what it is it's technology in service of consumers or businesses that also happens to be in the financial services world. But fintech's kind of become this catch-all word. But I think about it, some of the earliest adopters of technology all the time were financial services businesses. The banks and insurance companies on some of them are marvels of technology over the years. What's changed is direct access to consumers has become available, speed in many industries, and more than anything, user experience, where kind of I think financial services companies, like many other parts of the economy, have been laggards in customer experience and in kind of utilizing the tools of technology, not just to improve their internal processes, but rather to fundamentally change the experiences. one of the earliest investments at Aleph was in Lemonade. Um, and and the insight of Lemonade is actually really simple, but very fundamental. One is that the insurance business was adversarial. People hated their insurance companies. They still do for the most part. Um, for a very simple reason. It's a pain in the neck. And in your biggest hour of need, it's a bigger pain in the neck when you file a claim. And it's fundamentally adversarial. When they decline your claim, they make more money, these insurance companies. And what Lemonade did was said, I can fix this using technology. I can, I can fix the customer experience by making a delightful app and a bot. That's what people want to do. That don't really want to talk to people. Mm-hmm. I can do underwriting better because, and this was just in the earnings report, because I got the full loop of data. There's not a broker in the way, and I see the claims and I see the data, and I collect more. And I can make the business model not adversarial just by collecting a flat fee rather than making money every time I reject your claim. And people love it because people love delightful consumer experiences, and people like when companies are aligned with their values and, aren't incentivized to screw them. And I think that's, it's a perfect example. But I didn't know anything about insurance, and we certainly didn't call it insurtech or fintech. It's just a new insurance company built for the 21st century by delightful, people, Daniel Schreiber and Shai Winiger.
Amazing story. Yeah, Lemonade is huge. And yeah, I mentioned Matan. Just the names are, and you invest in people, right? So you have Matan and of course Ami also.
Yeah, we should tell everyone because no one knows what Matan is code for. But Matan Bar is one of the three founders of Melio. It was actually founded. Matan and I work about 100 yards from each other, 100 meters from each other, and kind of kept walking up and down Rothschild Boulevard, meeting each other's offices or on the street more often, even brainstorming ideas. And he walked in one day and said, nobody's branded ACH, but we can create this unbelievable experience for small business payments that'll be viral too. That's kind of shorthand for what happened. And Melio was born. This is the fastest growing company, non-financial software company I think I've ever seen, Melio. It's growing exponentially. Exponentially is now a word everyone knows because of the COVID virus, but it's growing exponentially and is a viral financial software business, solving small business payments and really helping small businesses stay in business, particularly in these difficult times, by helping them manage and optimize their cash flow and switch between payment methods, credit card, ACH, checks, etc. And just the people are amazing. Matan, Elon, Ziv, who started the company, know each other for a while, which helps when you're moving at this breakneck piece. And each one of them brings a different piece to this puzzle. But again, we didn't call it fintech. It's just a better way to manage your small business payments and to enable them. And it turns out people want a delightful experience for managing brands, and they want to be in business. And it's hard. And cash flow is hard for a small business. It's really hard. And you got to manage these vendors. And everyone's got different payment terms. And it's hard. And we can make this delightful. And we can make this work. And we can do the risk management better. And, business is growing like crazy, both in terms of number of employees and revenues and transaction volume all through COVID. And
yeah, I see them all over.
Yeah.
And also Rise Up. Rise Up, Yuval, was speaking a lot about you. What can you tell me about him and his team?
Oh man, I don't know what he said about me, so I better be careful here. But so Yuval came back from Sweden when he was at Klarna, and he was kind of hanging out a bit in our office, and we just knew we had to back Yuval. And he's just perhaps the most thoughtful product person I've met ever. But more than that, he had a deep personal passion for getting people out of overdraft, getting people out of spending more money than they earn, and getting people out of mental poverty. You can have a hard time making ends meet, but if we can help you out of that mental poverty, you can thrive. And Yuval, I'm sure he'll told you, grew up in those circumstances where his parents were not wealthy at all, to say the least. They, they grew up in a tiny apartment, near the market in Petah Tikva.
Yeah.
But his parents didn't have mental poverty. And so he and his two brothers computers and invested in good food and healthy food. And that mattered to Yuval. And he decided he was going to solve this. And he came to me and said, hey, look, this is a personal passion. I need to solve this in Israel first, and then I'll go attack the global market. But it's big enough in Israel, which I believe also it's a big enough problem in Israel financially to solve. And then he joined up with two amazing founders, Yiftach and Tamara, all of whom were super mission driven to raise people out of mental poverty and to help them finish the month and plus. And he iterated at it, great lean startup methodology and thesis and test the thesis and move on. And lo and behold, not only did it work, we've attracted the best and the brightest in Israel to this company, even though it's focused on an Israeli problem. That was never done before in the venture business.
That's true, yeah.
Never, ever. And it's his passion and his drive to solve this problem. And this moment in history we're at, where values will drive economic value. Values will drive economic value. Values drive value. It's what I've written about in my books ad nauseum at this point. And Yuval's nailed that. And what's really stunning is over the last couple of weeks now, you really see it. You go into the Rise Up Facebook group and people are literally sharing like their bank statements saying, I was in minus, boom, Rise Up, I'm in plus. It took 3-4 months. I stuck with it. I got it. And now I know what to do. And I'm out of mental poverty.
Wow.
And people are sharing video stories on Instagram saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a teacher, I'm a nurse. And I was living in overdraft and I installed Rise Up and the nudges help. And just seeing it in simple language and getting it in my WhatsApp or my Messenger works. And it's what I interact with every day. And it's my Rise Up. And I've risen up as a person.
Wow.
And it's becoming a movement. And I think this movement is applicable absolutely everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's the UAE or Dubai or America or Portugal. These guys have absolutely cracked something using a combination of human intelligence and artificial intelligence, great user interaction, and a real understanding of financials and cash flow. There we are, back to cash flow again. Cash flow is important for small business, also important for people. They've really cracked something. And I think you'll see Rise Up in other economies, small and big, because people deserve to get out of mental scarcity. People deserve, and Yuval and Tamara and Yiftach are committed to this. And I couldn't be prouder to be part of this company. Sir Ronald Cohen is an investor, and Jeff Swartz, the former CEO of Timberland, and other wonderful people. And it's just, it's my hair stands on end when I walk into that company.
Yeah, I heard so much vision from him, so much passion, really solve this. Unbelievable. Like one of the best talks that I had so far. And I interviewed so many CEOs around the world. What I noticed from him, it was like really the purpose, the sense of doing something important here. Unbelievable. Like I don't get to talk to people like that.
I encourage you to go to the office. You like get goosebumps. You walk in there, the team is so passionate about this and the individual stories that they go out and meet people. And it's like, whoa.
Wow.
Technology is a powerful force. Everyone talks about the negatives of technology. Press likes to talk about that. It is such a powerful force for good if we harness it and put the right values behind it. And that's what Matan is doing at Melio. He's putting the values behind it to keep small business in business. And Yuval is doing that at Rise Up. You mentioned Ami before. And we met Ami from Windward. For those who don't know, so Windward, it's an amazing little company. Not so little anymore. Windward started by two guys in the Navy who wanted to catch pirates using technology, basically. And what we've discovered is that a lot of nefarious stuff happens at sea. And we just don't see it. Ironically, sea with the SEA is a place we don't see SEE very much.
Yeah.
And I'm going to patent. I'm going to trademark that. I didn't think of that until now. And these guys, put together super interesting technology. And eyes in the sky, but not only, mostly predictive analytics when people turn off their beacons, which is law, you're supposed to keep it on, to track nefarious activity into the sea. But it turns out you can stop a lot of bad guys at sea. There it is again, values driving value. But we can also, by identifying risky behavior, we can reduce the overall cost of shipping for a lot of people and secure supply chains. And that is super important. It brings down the cost of living. It makes sure that people are not getting rooked or taken. Ami is so passionate. You get to talk to him, he's like all revved up. He's so passionate about this that it's infectious. And he and Matan Pellet over there have just done an amazing job of really figuring out the application for this technology. And again, it comes back to, they developed great technology initially, but they found applications that are values-based, that are on the right side of the law and on the right side of compliance and on the right side of reducing cost of living, cost of shipping, cost of goods. And that drives economic value.
Amazing. Of course, these are great companies. You have so much more. We can't fit all of them in the summit. I wanted to ask you about your observation of the new relations with the UAE. Of course, this summit, we're really focusing on these regions. And by the way, Bahrain also. Give me your vision for these relations with Israel.
What's funny is I've been there exactly once for 2.5 days. But I wrote an article and somehow everyone keeps asking about this. Like, I actually know what I'm talking about. And the answer is, I don't. I think there's a lot of people who know a lot more than I do about this. And there's a lot of people who seem to be talking who may know as much as I do about this, but are expert. I'm not an expert. That's the first thing. I have human observations after 2.5 days there, which are broken into 3 categories. One is unbelievably warm, welcoming people. My 2.5 days there were eye-opening, and I felt like I met long-lost cousins. And it was, I'm still in touch. 4 times this week, I've been on the phone with the UAE. I wasn't on the phone with the UAE 4 times in the last 27 years until now. So it's just, the warmth is stunning. And people really want to make this work. They care. They're commercial. It's been inspiring. That's number one. Point number 2, and I wrote this in an article that I wrote, is that this is and must be a trust-based process. Trust is not built overnight with people you've met for the first time in 70 or so years, last week or last month. And trust is a building process. The opening of The Great Gatsby, he talks about doing things repetitively in a predictable manner that builds brand or builds trust. And I think this is true. And there's a lot of gold rush because they think it's a wealthy country. I think that's a mistake. I think business is built on personal relationships, and personal relationships are not built overnight. And you need to go there. We need to show value to our new cousins or newfound cousins in the Emiratis and in Bahrain. And we need to be providing value to them and not cutting deals. I don't think that's it. I think they're a go-slow culture. And the third thing is, together we have an unbelievable opportunity. And I said this at the conference that I was at. These are, and the United States was there, and Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin presided over the conference. And I think these are representative, these flags of the 3 great Abrahamic or monotheistic faiths. Children of Abraham, of Abraham, and purveyors of monotheism around the world. And we have an opportunity to reset both the relationship and economics and business on these Abrahamic values. They're called the Abraham Accords, which is brilliant branding. And the values of Abraham are, and he was chosen because he was expected to instruct his children to do charity and justice. That's what the verses in the Bible say. Charity and justice. This must be a values-based relationship. This must be a values-based economic relationship. And these great faiths and these great, wonderful people have a shot right now at being a beacon for the world on how you collaborate, how you cooperate, and how you do it based on values. And that excites me more than anything. And I'm super excited by this. I think financial services, for what it's worth, is an area where there's a lot of room for collaboration. One of the things I heard there is that their digitization of financial services is behind a bit. I think there's room for collaboration there. They're super sophisticated on financial markets and trading in a way I think Israel is not. And I think there's actually amazing room and complementary room for collaboration in those areas, and obviously in places like agritech, energy, et cetera. Those are the more obvious ones, though.
Wow. So you wrote that article for the Israeli ecosystem to better understand the lessons that you learned?
Again, yes, I wrote it for the Israeli ecosystem, but it was translated to English. And so it went pretty far and wide. In fact, just this morning, I got a note from Toronto when I woke up. Somebody who read the article and wanted to invite me to as an expert panelist. I wrote him back. I don't know anything about this. I really don't. It was just my personal observations, and it was written for the Israeli ecosystem. I'm a little worried. Israelis, tend to run to places like this, and I think one should be cautious. I think one should build personal relationships and deliver value before running to cut a deal. And this kind of gold rush is not good for anyone, and not for our cousins in the Emirates either.
Before we end, maybe I can surprise you and ask you about the book. I'm hearing that you launched a book, right? Is that true?
I've actually written 4 books, but I'm in the middle of a book series that I've written, of which the first 2 volumes have come out in Hebrew, and the English translation is done. It's waiting, hopefully, for Simon & Schuster to publish it. The book series I'm in the middle of is the economics of the Bible, of the 5 books of Moses. And I've done Genesis and Exodus, Bereshit and Shemot already. Leviticus, or Vayikra, is due out in January in Hebrew, February in Hebrew. It's finished. And it is, everyone, when they go to do exegesis or explanations or explications of the Bible, brings their own kind of world to it. If you grew up as the Treasury Ministry in Portugal, like Rabbi Yitzchak Danar Bar Benel, you have one view of it. And if you're a philosopher like the now late, and it's tragic passing this past week of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, who has a background in philosophy and an unbelievable breadth of view about Western thought. And he brought that to his interpretations of the Bible. And it's a tremendous loss, by the way. We've lost one of the greats of the world in the last week. My world is economics and innovation and technology and venture capital, and I see that in the verses of the Bible, the 5 books of Moses. And so I've been writing about that, and actually have, for the most part, large parts of it of all 5 books are already written. I have an amazing editor, Amit Miskav, who has been challenging me to up my game on each book, and so they've been coming out serially. And so the 3rd one is due out in January, but thank you for asking. And, a lot of it is what we talked about, which is there's deep values to creating economic value. And I believe many of those are in the verses of the Bible, but other things too, like what happens when an economy goes into overshoot, like happened, with Joseph in Egypt. You have too much centralization of the economy, like Joseph in Egypt. What happens when you have economic downturns in a certain industry, call it shepherding, and you need to transition to an agricultural economy? And what happens when kids fight over inheritance, and that happens too? And then kind of lessons of leadership from Moses. And one of my favorite ones, we can talk about this week. This week's portion that is read in synagogues around the world is Chayei Sarah, the lives of the matriarch Sarah. And at the beginning of the portion, a bereaved Abraham turns up to buy a burial plot for his beloved wife. And he runs into the local Hittites and Canaanites, and he needs to buy this. And they're really happy to have him because he's a rich guy. And, they like to absorb him into the clan, into the tribe. and therefore absorb his wealth that he should assimilate amongst them. And all he wants is a burial plot. But he wants to live in good neighborly relations. So I chart there how using Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky's work on game theory, as well as FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss's work on tactical empathy, which he highlights in his book on negotiation called Never Split the Difference, how Abraham artfully negotiates this deal with Ephron the Hittite using game theory and tactical empathy of Chris Voss to negotiate the best deal he can, but to stand on his values, which is, I want to be a good neighbor with you, but I'm not willing to assimilate. Because we're not trying to assimilate cultures and make everyone the same. What we want to do is amplify everybody's individual culture, but have great neighborly relations. And I think that is explicated really well at the beginning of this week's portion. Abraham stands for his values of, I want to be respectful but different, and at the same time does a fair business deal, doesn't destroy his opposition in the negotiation, but using these great tools developed or explicated later by Kahneman, Tversky, and Chris Voss.
Amazing how this is so relevant. Thank you very much. How can people follow Aleph and you and your posts about all kinds of subjects like that?
So the Aleph.vc website is one place to start. There's a lot of content there, and sometimes I say unintelligent things on Twitter at Mike Eisenberg. Unfortunately, at Michael Eisenberg was not available, so I had to cut the name. And then, that's roughly about, and my books, which hopefully be out in English soon. And yes. Hopefully my English editors get them out and publishers get them out soon.
I'm really looking forward for that. Thank you very much. I knew it's going to be an interesting conversation, and we still didn't cover all the companies and all the possibilities, with Israel, and I think this time it's really, people want to hear this stuff. People wants to hear, where is it going? I mean, with all the, the COVID and the crisis and stuff. And I think,
this COVID, which is terrible on a human level. But I think it's really important to look at the uncertainty caused by COVID and use it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity economically, it's an opportunity spiritually, it's an opportunity for values discussion. It's an opportunity to make new friends. One of the horrible things about masks is that it hides us from people. We need to wear them for health reasons. We must wear them for health reasons. At the same time, it should engender the human spirit to want to reach out and see other people beyond their masks. Let's not judge books by their covers. I think it's a chance to remind ourselves that we need to look for, the human spirit in the other person. And we should look beyond that mask when we get a chance. And so I hope this will be an opportunity for an economic discussion, a values discussion, and how we touch other people discussion. We need that.
Yeah. And this is why we have this summit. And I'm sure lots of people would love to connect with you, to follow these lessons and really to connect. I mean, we had an amazing FinTech Nation Summit. It was in September. And we had these fintechs coming together from all the nations, and talking about open banking and best practices from every nation. There's so much to learn, so much to collaborate. So we wanted to create these fintech bridges, and all of them came together, all the biggest nations. Actually, I got the idea for the name from the Ministry of Finance in the Netherlands. That said that the Netherlands should really focus in fintech, and they should create these fintech bridges. And he mentioned 2 countries, Israel and Singapore.
Amen to that.
So I think, we will continue with that brand, with the FinTech Nations, and hopefully next year we're going to have a hackathon with the fintechs together and banks with Open API. So there's
hopefully we get the Open API done in Israel too.
Yes. People like Yuval are really pushing it, and he called me after the conversation and said, Nir, let's do something. If we're not going to do it, nobody's going to do it. He really wants to, beyond the company, he really wants to help and do something about that.
He's right.
Yeah.
There's nobody better to do it than Yuval.
Yes, I agree. And I still need to meet Tamara, by the way.
He's awesome.
Hearing great things. So thank you very much, and let's keep in touch.
Deal. Good to see you.
Yes. Bye-bye, friend.